So, I mean, I've read your autobiography, and it's an incredible thing. As I told you when I last saw you, and how is Simon, by the way? I mean, I should let the podcast listeners know that we have a mutual friend, Simon Lowry, who I believe is building an 80s arc of of 80s artists to take to another planet.
Another planet.
His mission is nearly complete, I think. Anyway, but no, he's a great man. I just thought I'd give him a name.
Did you get the photo yesterday where he says, this is where I'll be putting my new garden?
No.
It was on the dark side of the moon. It was hysterical. It's a beautiful picture of the moon. It was great. And he had it all mapped out.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, let's start with your I mean, this is old ground. God, how many interviews have you been asked this? But I just want to quickly sketch your early life in the Lower East Side, and maybe look at the incredible life that you had at that point, where you were growing up in a house which is pretty much a hippie house, isn't that right?
Beatnik house.
Sorry, yeah.
When it was my parents, but I ran away from home early, and when I ran away from home, I actually did move into a hippie commune. That was probably around 14, 15 years old.
Oh my!
15 years old.
And wow, that must have been quite an incredible experience for you. So, I suppose you just thought it was normal at the time, but can you kind of give us a flavor of what the scene was like at that point?
Well, the point where I left home and I was sort of a runaway.
Yeah,
it was fantastic. that was where my knowledge of music increased on an exponential level. Are we going live, Martin? I'm like hearing like crosstalk now. I have the television on.
Oh no! I'm recording now. So do you have?
Let me get my. Hey, E-boy, can you turn off the sound on the television or turn off the television? Yeah, in the kitchen. We're doing a Zoom. Thanks. We're in America. We're all riveted to the George Floyd.
Shit!
The Coven trial.
And what point is that at the moment?
This is closing arguments.
He's got to go down, surely.
We've seen this 100 times in America.
I know.
And it's like nothing. It's like, because you only have to have one person on the jury out of 12 to, it has to be completely unanimous every time, which is amazing in a country that sort of believes in majority rule. Right.
Yeah, it didn't quite fit the thing, does it? Really?
Of course.
Yeah, and so at that point, you're 15, 16. You're living in a hippie household. You're experimenting with different types of relationships, different types of altered states, probably, and different types of music. As well.
Yes.
So what would you say was your biggest influence at that point? Was it jazz? Was it blues?
Well, the thing that was interesting is that because that sort of hippie era, let's just say from like 78 to I'm sorry, not 78, 68 until around 73, that sort of area of my life was probably the most, how would I say it?
Formative, no?
Formative, yeah. Formative is great. I also, I was just immersed and bombarded with different types of music, different styles of music, different styles of different philosophies. I mean, boy, you're so open at that age to whatever. And of course, where I was coming from, almost all of those sort of like cultish type sect type movement. What they had like brilliant marketing. It's like American drug companies. You always send in these gorgeous girls, and I'm just like this, ragamuffin hippie on the street, panhandling and playing whatever I could play, and the influences and the information was incredible. So I was around when Nietzsche and Shoshu Buddhism first started, Scientology, primal screen therapy, like everything. There's just like 1 week after the next, there was a new thing to get into. And
did you have a go at? Did you have a go at that?
Everything, you name it. I mean, because you're like this lonely kid on the street playing, the Universal Soldier or something. He's 5'2" and he's 6'4". He fights with missiles and with spears, that kind of thing.
I'm going to put a track to that, by the way.
That's going
to be my new ringtone.
Cute girl.
Yeah.
You got such a nice way about you. Would you like to come to the temple of blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. The temple of this, the temple of that, the temple. I felt like it was Game of Thrones or something. Everything was a temple. And you sort of listen with, at least I did, I listened with very open ears. And I'd usually stick around for a week or two until the next wonderful person came up to me with an idea that sounded even better. And that's also what happened musically, because musicians, especially in those days, love to turn people on to the new thing that they're into. And I know you can attest to this, right? Especially like guitar players, because guitar players are probably, I'm speaking very generally, but are not typically theoretically trained to the degree that other musicians are trained, because guitar is something that is the sort of, sit around well, at least when I was younger, sit around the hash pipe, and say, hey man, let me try that. And this is how you play a D chord. This is how you play a C chord. But because I already had a good theoretical musical knowledge, I approached the guitar differently. So I was into classical guitar quite early, because that was my instrument of bass at that time. I liked it.
Yeah.
So I was playing clarinet, and what was maybe one of the most fortunate incidents in my life was that when guitar became the instrument of the movement and the whole bit, the written range of the guitar is the same written range as the B-flat clarinet. So the low E, 3 ledger lines below the staff. So all of my etudes, all of my great study books, I could just take and apply it to the guitar. So in no time at all, I was getting gigs as a guitar player because I could read music so well. They didn't mind my funny hippie appearance. They didn't mind anything. They just were concerned with the money, that I could get in, do the session really fast and get out.
So you were a very good sight reader, is that right?
Very, very good, yes.
Yeah. And you learned orchestration at Juilliard, is that right?
No, actually, so that story always gets confused, because what happened was, no, I had been learning orchestration my entire life. This was part of the standardized music curriculum in school. So you didn't necessarily have to learn orchestration, but what happened was, because my parents were heroin addicts and I changed schools so much, whenever you would change to another school, since music was part of the standardized curriculum, they would assign you whatever instrument was lacking in the I wound up learning the ranges, the written ranges. I learned how to play a little bit of a tune on everything, at least carry a tune to get through a lesson. And of course, when you're that age, unless you're a prodigy, you know, you're not that great. All those bands sounded pretty terrible until I got to what we call secondary school. At that point, we started to sound good. We started to play, you know, Prokofiev and Tchaikovsky and Mozart. And at that point, we were decent. I mean, we could, you know, we could hold our own.
Yeah.
But the problem is that now I'm 16 and
Yeah. And you would rather be with girls, right?
And I always laugh. I say to myself, well, you know, what girl is going to walk up to me? And especially at this point, I'm living in the hood in Los Angeles, right? Is going to walk up to me and say, you know, like, oh my God, I love that concerto you just played. That was fantastic. It was like, come on. Everybody's into hardcore R&B music. And what was really strange, it's like I have a very odd brain in that I partied and danced to R&B and soul music, but never played it, never tried to play it on the clarinet. I like never once was tempted to like, you know, go off and try and do, you know, Sidney Bechet or Benny Goodman or Coltrane or anything. It just somehow didn't feel right to me. Yeah. But when I picked up the guitar was after a night of dropping acid with Dr. Timothy Leary, whom I didn't even know.
As you do.
I never. As one does. It's like I didn't know what acid was. I didn't know who Timothy Leary was. I didn't know anything about that. My partner, my buddy, and I, we were just going to the roller skating rink, and when we got there, we were between sessions, and being, you know, poor, being from the ghetto, we decided we'd just wait around until the next full session started. And whilst we waited, we looked across the street and we saw these long-haired dudes. Like we didn't have kids like that in our school. So we were already sniffing glue, and we were pretty high and incredibly friendly. So we went over to these long-haired guys and said, you know, what's up, man? What's the deal with you guys? Who are you? And the guy said something to the effect of, well, man, you know, that makes me free. Man, you know, like, we're freaks. And I said, you know, being the kid that I was, I said, freaks? You mean like the movie? We accept them. What up? We got, they were like, and they all started cracking up and went, oh, wow, man, spade cats. You guys want to take a trip? And we said, of course. And we thought they just meant like joyriding, because they were these sort of cool white guys that were older than us, a little older than us. But, you know, so we were 16, 14, 15, 16, something like that. And they were probably around 18 or 19. And we thought it was cool. They to us, they reminded us more of surfer kind of guys. And we were like, okay, cool. You know, let's go to the beach or something. But instead, they took us up to the Hollywood Hills, where we met Timothy Leary. And it was a house that was made of what to our, you know, young teenage minds, teenage glue-addled minds.
Jesus Christ.
It was all glass to us. And everybody was sitting, making love and getting high and all this. And we were like, wow. What is
this? Yeah.
Like paradise. Like, you know. And all I can say is I was there for 2 days, and I came home and my poor little grandmother was freaked out. The cops were at my house. And she just was like, you know, I don't know who you are now. And I mean, I changed in 2 days.
Shit. And I bet she thought, good Lord, I bet she thought she'd lost you to the dark side.
It was quite the immediate transformation. I mean, I was still a good kid because I didn't, you know, I wasn't, I was like the nice kid. I didn't do criminal stuff or anything like that. And I never hung out with those kids. And the only thing I did with the kids who were really sort of tough and hardcore is I would sell them what they thought was pot. But in fact, my grandmother had a lot of exotic birds. So I would take their mixtures. This was incredible. I would take different bird seeds and mix them with catnip. And you got to remember, the guys that I was selling to were not terribly sophisticated. And I would tell them that this was, they would say, man, this weed doesn't look right.
No.
And I would say, no, you don't understand, man. This was born, this weed was grown in the volcanic regions of Sinsemilla and only picked once
a million, man. Yeah.
By virgin, by virgin nuns. And I come up with all these wild stories because I loved, swashbucklers and fantasies and pirate movies. I just make up stuff, and these guys would buy it hook, line, and sinker. And I also tell them, now remember, to get maximum effect, when you smoke this, make sure you drink at least, blah, blah. So they would basically just get.
Oh, that's clever. Yeah, I like that. Oh my God, you were quite a character, obviously. I've got a quick question for you. It's not in the timeline, but it just occurred to me then. Who's your favorite rhythm guitar player?
Oh my God.
Because I've never heard anybody ask you that question. So I'm just. I know you've defined your own style, but it just occurred to me that there must be somebody.
I would have to say, after, but believe it or not, my ex-partner, my former partner, Bernard Edwards, who was an amazing rhythm guitar player. He's the guy who taught me.
Yeah.
I'd have to say Bernard Edwards.
Right, God bless him. God rest his soul.
I know.
Yeah, so you met Bernard really early, didn't you? You met him it says here, on a Sesame Street session. Is that right?
Not quite right. See, once again, I guess when they try
Wikipedia is so terrible.
Yeah, no. So I was already gigging with Sesame Street, and I met Bernard on a pickup gig.
Oh, right.
So, typically, a guy just calls you and says, hey, we got a gig on Friday night. Are you free? So I, one of those gigs.
Right.
We call in America 15 centers.
Right.
You got paid $15 for playing the gig. And I remember I walked into the club and I was late because I got a last minute call because the guy who gave me the gig, he had gotten a last minute call for a gig that was paying more money. Right. And so he asked me, hey man, can you please sit in for me? I was like, yeah, okay, cool. It's actually great because I wasn't doing anything. And I took the gig. I got in late, and when I walked in the door, they were playing the song Sissy Strut.
Right, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, when you're gigging and doing pickup gigs and doing cover gigs and all that sort of thing, everybody knows Sissy Struts. I walked in, they were playing Sissy Strut, and I consider myself a jazz guitarist at the time. So I had a big, fat, archtop guitar that fed back at a low level, but came in, we were grooving, and it was great. And the band was an entire pickup band, so nobody knew anyone. So, the band leader, the guy who was paying us, would call out different songs because he had a show. He actually probably had an established band at once, and he may have fired them all. So he had a little show, he had a routine, all sorts of stuff. And he was calling out the songs, and not every musician in the unit knew the songs. So Bernard and I took it upon ourselves to call out the changes to the people in the band. And this is what was so cool about the old days. We could call out the changes by numbers. Everybody's ears were so good that they knew that whether it was a dominant chord or a major chord or a minor 7 chord or a diminished chord or a half diminished, whatever, people just had that skill level. So we actually wound up having a really good show because the front guy was a super entertainer. He could sing, and he played trumpet. He was like Louis Armstrong, but young and hip and funky.
Yeah, wow, amazing. Okay, let's move on to the start of Chic. So I remember in your autobiography you mentioned that you were influenced by going to a Roxy Music concert. Is that right?
100% correct. Yes. So Bernard became the band leader of a group called New York City. And we had one hit record that was so big that it kept us gigging for 2 years. Doing fun now. Baby. Right. So that was ours. The Pasadenas covered it. We did it first.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Pasadena's years later. So so we did that song in probably 1971 or 2. And we gigged all the way up until 73 or 4. Not quite sure.
Right.
But we finished our last gig in UK. And somehow one of my bags got stolen while we were packing the coach to head to the airport. The bag that was stolen had all my money and my passport. So I was stranded in London with nothing. But fortunately, I had a girlfriend. You know the adage. What do you say? What do you call a musician without a girlfriend? Homeless. So I had a girlfriend, so that meant I had a home. So I stayed with her, and she took me to see her favorite band, which I had never heard of. And it was this group called Roxy Music. And we went to this place, and I think it was called the Roxy something or other. And we saw Roxy Music at the Roxy, and the crowd was gorgeous. And Roxy Music, obviously, they were wearing like couture clothing. And I was like, whoa, what the hell is this? Because, we were basically R&B and rock and roll musicians. And in those days, whatever you put on in the morning, was the clothing that you performed it.
Yeah.
So rock and roll and R&B were really fundamentally we were the same thing, like if you were playing with Albert King, and he was the lead guy, I'm pretty sure maybe Albert King got dressed, but I don't think so. I think we all just wore those clothes that day. So to see a group that actually changed clothes for the show, we were like, man, this is unbelievable. And then we looked at the audience, and the audience had changed clothes basically in my mind. The audience came dressed up like that. I thought, I had never seen anything like that. And I called Bernard, who was back in the States for a couple of days. And I said, man, I've just seen it. I'll never forget this. I remember this phone call so well. I said, I've just seen a totally immersive experience in music. He says, what the hell are you talking about? I said, imagine, like when you go to the museum, you're completely surrounded by, whatever, King Tut. I said, now I go to a concert and I'm surrounded by everything that feels like Roxy Music.
Yeah.
We got to do the black version. We got to do the black version of that.
Right.
He had no idea what talking about.
That's a
I
very...
went out and I bought.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry to interrupt. It's a very interesting way of conceptualizing that, how it affected you, because, round about that time, obviously, glam was an enormous thing, and the entire idea, particularly in working class communities like in Sheffield, where I grew up, of going out on Friday and Saturday nights and spending all your money on clothes, to go and impress the girls, right? And Roxy Music tapped into all that stuff. Roxy Music were massive in the north of England, in particular, more than London, strangely enough. And working class communities loved it because it was a fantasy, right? And I think you tapped into that.
So I'm actually happy that you told me that, because I never realized that. I just looked at it from an American Black person's point of view.
Yeah.
And now the disco era, and that's exactly what we were doing. We were living the lives, we were presenting the lives that we wanted to have, not the lives that we had. And that allowed us to be more theatrical, because it gave us, just like with music theory, it gave us a rule book to play by. It was like, no, we're Chic. we're this. When we're not Chic, well, we're just Nile and Bernard. But when we're Chic, we have, the couture clothing on. The girls are wearing Fendi and blah, blah, blah. And, it was a big deal.
The interesting thing is, Niall, that the balance of female and male in your group is a very interesting dynamic as well. And it wasn't traditional, and actually I have to admit that Heaven 17 kind of stole that idea from you. We've always had two girl backing vocalists, and we always dressed well and did all that stuff. So you were influenced by Rock's music. We were influenced by Chic. And the early Human League too were massive Chic fans. All those, when the whole disco sucks movement came along and all that, we were loyal, and a lot of working class kids in Sheffield were loyal, and northern towns in Britain were loyal to Chic. And I believe that's why Chic are so massive still. At all times, you sell out all the time, everywhere in the UK, correct?
You are, man. I love you. You're so spot on. You're explaining something to me I never knew. So yeah, it's true. We do sell out all the time, and it's interesting. The further north we go, the more popular we are.
There you go. Good. I'm glad I've joined those dots for you. That's great. Yeah.
We never. The sort of Chic 2.0. Ireland put us on the map. We started doing festivals, and those gigs, those gigs made such a huge difference in our life, because we were now playing to 30, 40, 50,000 people. And then we started doing the biggest festivals in the UK eventually, doing Glastonbury twice.
Amazing. So let's just go back to Chic a little bit and that period. You can't... Right, I always thought that Chic symbolized musically something that was incredibly sophisticated. But on the surface, it was easily digestible to the average person in the street. But I as a musician, and lots of other musicians, understand the sophistication of what you were doing under the bonnet for those songs, because they are so elegant and beautiful and clever, and there's a lot of jazz and fusion going on in there, but people just think it's a dance number with a hook, and I can sing along to it. There's a lot of clever shit going on there. So obviously you knew this was the case, but was that a deliberate effort to kind of, or was it just part of what came out naturally? Did you want to make it have a twist of sophistication with the music?
Yeah, it was quite deliberate, because we wanted to play pop music that we felt that we could walk down the streets with our heads held high.
Yes.
And I remember one of the greatest compliments that I have ever received in my life. I was walking down the street going to my apartment, and this great jazz pianist came up from behind me, and he tapped me on my shoulder. Now he was someone that I had known for, a number of years. I played in jazz big bands with him and stuff like that. And I would go see his concerts. And now Chic was happening, and we were bigger than, any jazz artist that was selling at the time. And he tapped me on my shoulder, and it was so sweet. He said, "I hear what you're doing, young blood."
Yeah, there you go.
I hear those chord changes. I hear you doing the cool voice leading. I hear all that intricate stuff, where I'm a big lover of chromaticism.
Yeah.
The very first song I ever wrote for Chic, Everybody Dance, has the do 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 with the bass line. I love that. And to come up with chord changes that were technically within the mode, but had different extensions and interpretations of the chord structure, of the basic chord structure. Really, really interesting and fun to play, even though people in the audience were just going, "Everybody dance."
Yeah. There you go.
Clap your hands. Well, we were going, So I always wanted to be McCoy Tyner.
Yeah. Listen, there's another thing as well. It gives it gives you more. Go. Have you frozen?
No, I'm moving. I'm not.
It's still there. Okay, got you. It's the internet on my end, I think. I was going to say to you that the reason why people want to watch you continuously, I mean, they'll come to multiple gigs, is because of the complexity of your music. Because every time you listen to your songs, a new level of sophistication is revealed. What do you think about that?
Well, thank you, my friend. I love that people get it, but I also love that they don't get it. I mean, it doesn't, as long as the end result is that they feel good, that we've touched their soul. And, Bernard and I, we made a pact at the beginning of Chic, at the formation of Chic. This whole rock was weird to him. He didn't quite get it. And as a matter of fact, he came up with the name Chic. We were called the Big Apple Band. But so when he finally bought into this whole sophisto, and we even call our music sophisto funk, when he bought into this whole sophisto funk concept, what was really cool about doing what we did is Bernard is such a good band leader. Is he always made sure, because I really was the primary songwriter. He always made sure that I was true to my nature, that I was true to what we started the band based on. So everything always had to have some kind of jazzy, cool chord progression or some interesting break. Or even if you have a song like we did for Sister Sledge, Lost in Music, where I did the string arrangement where it goes, where we're telegraphing. We telegraphed the next chord. And we did all sorts of really clever little musical tricks that you really only learn from having a theoretical background. It's like the Diana Ross song Upside Down. When we go from the chorus to the verse, that key change is a totally simple key change. All we had to do was to go from B flat major and just go to B flat minor. But of course, what I do is I go up chromatically from G minor and just go up chromatically. G minor, A flat, A to B flat. Dun, 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 because
there you go.
We didn't have to do that. We could have just went instinctively. And once again, we telegraph the next section with she does a pickup into the new key. There's all those, sophisticated musical tricks that you could pull out, but the audience doesn't pay attention. We hope that they're not paying attention and that the ones who do go, wow, that was clever.
Yeah.
People just are on the dance floor shaking their butts.
Yeah, exactly. So, my favorite Chic song is I Want Your Love. I can never listen to that enough times. It's my go-to track. I just think it's so beautiful. If you could take out the rhythm and the danceability and the guitars, and it would make a beautiful piece of orchestral music. And I'm just in awe of the way that it builds and the emotional impact it has on me is incredible. And I think if I was to sum up your talent, which is hard to do, I have to say, but I would say you have, of all the producers that I know of, and in fact, I was interviewing Tony Visconti last week, and I admire him tremendously. But of all the producers, you are the producer who engages people emotionally most. And I think that's why you've been so successful.
Thank you. It's, I dreamt the song I Want Your Love. I dreamt it note for note. The only thing that's not on the page is at a certain point in the arrangement, the horns, they mirror the string that it just played. So the next bit, the horns do that. At that point, the concert master said to me, "Hey, Nile, why don't the strings go up an octave to support that space when the horns are playing the lick, so we don't just have one big section in the same register?" And I thought, that's a damn good idea. So that's the only thing that's not on the page. Everything else is on the page.
What a joy! What a joy, Niall. Beautiful. And the tubular bells is a stroke of genius.
Yeah,
That was hook, hook, hook.
Yeah, So when I thought of that idea, it's because of, if you look at all the early Chic albums, you just turn it over. I'm talking records now. You got to look on the back, turn it over, and look at who's playing on our records. It's all people from the New York Philharmonic. It's all people that I went to music school with. It's all people that were friends of mine. And they taught me how to use symphonic or orchestral instrumentation on pop records and not have to spend the kind of money that was only available to us, because in America, which was really horrible, the Black musicians' budgets were like nothing. Oh. Like I had friends of mine who had white rock and roll bands, never sold a record in their lives. They were just brand new good bands that didn't connect, because as you know, most bands don't connect. But they had like $1 million contract. Our record deal, Chic, we had $35,000 to make an album. How do you make an album with $35,000 if you want like the New York Philharmonic strings, and you want the Brecker Brothers, and you want all these like famous jazz musicians playing? It's favors. You're calling in favors for friends, and they know that you're going to be doing enough gigs and enough sessions where if we're all friendly to each other, they can call me for a favor too. And that's how I made all those records in the early days. Everybody Dance cost $15 to make.
Shit. I don't know what to say. I just want a big shout out for two other songs which I love of yours. At Last I Am Free.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Always gets me. And Chic Mystique, I just think is one of the funkiest songs ever written. And I'm still kind of surprised it was never a big hit single or anything. Did you used to open shows with that? Because it would have been a great show opener.
No, not really, because, at that point, really, really hip-hop dominated the universe. And because in America, Black radio was the only lane that was open to us. It wasn't like, maybe if Chic had somehow decided we were going to go on a college tour and do a whole different thing and become more like a jam band vibe and create some kind of theatrical thing, that actually could have worked, because Chic has always been a straight up live band. We're just basically a bar band. We don't have any secret backing tracks. We don't have people singing behind the curtain or anything like that. Like, the people you see on stage are making the music you hear, and that's how it's always going to be. And when Black music changed from that. It changed to playback. Playback.
Yeah.
Watch dancers do all sorts of wonderful acrobatic stuff. And that became, the template for Black music. And we just were out of fashion, just like, the people who had come before us were suddenly out of fashion when Chic came along.
Right. Another thing I remember, it's just come back to me. I went to see you play at BB King's in New York in 2001.
I remember that.
It was fucking, excuse my language, fucking awesome. Omar Hakim on drums, right? And oh my God. And I was about 10 feet away from the front of the stage, and you had a big band with loads of brass, and talk about an immersive experience. That was an immersive experience. I just want to applaud you for that gig. It was just amazing. And then I just want to talk to you about, obviously, your amazing production work. I don't know where to start, really. I mean, the stuff you did with Madonna was incredible. Obviously, Duran Duran. Sheena Easton. You did a Grace Jones album. I didn't realize that.
I'm Not Perfect. It was really, it's a terrific album. I always quote Grace Jones as having written one of the most brilliant lyrics ever. We did a song on that album called Hollywood Liar, which was great. Grace is a genius. And the opening lyric is, "Who are you to crash my party with your mediocre blow?" So, I wish I could write like that. And what was wonderful is that she was totally, almost cinematic. She was setting us up for that hook. She's setting us up for Hollywood Liar. Right away, she just says, "Who are you to crash my party with your mediocre blow? Your powder has no power over me. Don't talk to my friends the way you talk to the valley. The way you talk to the girls from the valley. You're just another liar to me." Hollywood Liar. So I'm the producer, the director of that. It's great.
Oh my God, that is a great put down. That's tremendous. And so, and did you have something? Did you produce Love Shack? No.
I produced that album. So here's the really interesting story about Love Shack. So I had already promised Diana Ross that I would produce her album, and she needed it by a certain time because when she moved to RCA Records, they gave her some extraordinary deal because remember, she's now coming off of the biggest album of her life. She's coming, Diana, Upside Down, I'm coming out, blah, blah, blah. So I felt beholding to her. I felt grateful to her. And I had already, had a great experience with B-52s. We did a film called Earth Girls Are Easy. And we just had a blast. And they decided, that's it, this guy's got to produce our album. So I agreed to produce the album, but then when I explained to them the dilemma, I said, look, let me call my friend. And he was in this band, Don was in this band called Was Not Was.
Oh, yeah, I know Don, yeah.
I was a huge Was Not Was fan, and they had not broken big. But I used to go see them like religiously. I loved them. And I just knew that Don would be the guy to do it. So I called him up and I said, hey, man, would you do me a favor? Like, sure. Could you produce a couple of tracks on the B-52s album? And I'm certainly not saying this to hurt Don's feelings, like even a little bit, because I love the dude and I love the band. I love his playing. But yeah, I gave him the short thing because I knew the B-52s album. I had already worked with them. I had a great rapport, and I knew we'd have solid songs. So they played the demo of Love Shack. I was like, do that, but you got it. That's a monster. because I had everything else. I had Rome, I had Deadbeat Club, I had some other really great. I had Cosmic Thing, the song, the album that the song that the album is named after. So Cosmic Thing was the first thing I did for Love, for Earth Girls Are Easy. So we had Cosmic, and that was actually, to me, the perfect B-52s kind of record, because I was a huge fan of theirs. And, so it was really great that I knew that I could cover them and that I could do Diana Ross's record, and we all wound up being one big happy family. So
Cool.
Not the bulk of the record, but still, it was great. It was really, and that's, that's the spirit that we had in New York. We would cover each other. Like if you needed somebody to do something for you, it's funny you mentioned Tony Visconti. So he was my next door neighbor for for years and years and years, and I felt really weird when David chose me to do the Let's Dance album. So one day I happened to see Tony, and I don't remember where we were, but the way I felt like I could make amends to him is I said, "Hey man, Chic, we're working in Central Park. Why don't you come and mix our live sound?"
Oh, clever.
It was great. It was awesome.
Yeah. He's a nice guy, Tony, I think.
I
really
love it.
Yeah, he's a good man. Yeah.
And a talented one.
Oh my God. I mean, he's made some of my favorite albums of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you did Like a Virgin.
I did.
I love that track. You did a great job. And you must have been very surprised by the massive success of Let's Dance.
I was, but no one was more surprised than David. I mean, he had never experienced that kind of success. I was sort of used to it because, look, let's be facts. Let's just throw out facts here. The Freak is still the biggest selling single in the history of Atlantic Records. So that's the label of everyone from, Bruno Mars to Ray Charles. I mean, that's, Aretha Franklin, Led Zeppelin, Crosby, Stills and Nash. The biggest song is Freak Out. Yeah. So I was accustomed to selling, I was accustomed to working with people and having that work be the biggest of their careers. So by the time I got to Bowie, I had already done Chic, Sister Sledge, Diana Ross, Norma Jean, every single that we put out up until Chic, Real People, and that album, every single song that we put out as a single, nothing was less than a gold single. Most were platinum, many were double platinum, and The Freak was triple platinum.
Wow.
For singles, that means that we sold 7 million singles in America. And we would have sold more than that, but we cut it off because we thought, wait a minute, our album's not going to sell. Here, I Want Your Love. And they're not going to hear Happy Man, and they're not going to hear it Last Time Free. Let's cut the sales.
Oh my God, cut off. I wish I had that luxury. Yeah. So, Sheena Easton, tell me about. Yeah. There's an interesting one.
Good for Love.
Yeah.
So Sheena, when I met Sheena, this is something you've probably seen happen many times in the music business. It's happened to Michael Jackson, and it's happened to everybody. You put out the biggest, it's happened to Bowie. You put out the biggest record of your life. The label says now you somehow have to equal or top that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing because the biggest record of your life is, I was talking to Lindsey Buckingham about Fleetwood Mac and Rumors. Same thing, you put out the biggest record of your career, and if you don't match that or top it, and have the next record become the biggest record of your career, for some reason, people feel like you're a failure or you're damaged goods. It's a very odd thing. They don't understand that the biggest record of your career is it's what I call convergence. It's all of these forces that have nothing to do with you coming together at the same time and going, wow, this is the greatest thing. And bam, you have Le Freak. And then bam, you have We Are Family, or bam, you have Thriller, or bam, you have Like a Virgin. So after Bowie had Let's Dance, which was just enormous, because the record that he had done before that with Tony was Scary Monsters. I don't even think, I don't know the numbers, but they weren't anywhere near a gold record or anything like that.
No.
Because if it were a gold record, you don't drop Bowie on a gold record. So he got dropped after Scary Monsters. So when we did Let's Dance, we were doing it all by ourselves. He had no label. He put up all the money himself, a completely independent record. And so he went from being a pauper to a prince, if not the king.
Yeah. Exactly. So another shout out for Spacer, which, Sheila B Devotion is a let's say it like it is. She's a modestly talented disco artist with a charming voice, but she's not exactly Aretha Franklin. So, and then you gave her this song, which is so unbelievably great. Literally, when that record came out, me and all my friends just played the grooves off it. I just thought it was just a superb piece of work. And the sophistication of the piano part, it's just a haunting melody. It's just beautiful. Spacer, my God.
Remember, Martin, I always wanted to be McCoy Tyner. Parts that I would write.
I just settled for being Nile Rodgers if I were you. That's fine. I think you're doing okay. Right. So we're getting close to the end. So I need to crack on. So tell me, you've done loads of film soundtracks, right? What's your favorite of the ones that you've done? Would you say?
Coming to America.
Oh yeah, they just brought the new one out. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not as good as the original. No, it's really not. Okay, so for everyone, I could talk to you for hours because obviously, my God, where do you end? But I do this stupid kind of smash hits kind of thing where I ask people their favorite X, so and I don't like to prepare people in advance so that I get a spontaneous answer. So here we go. So what's your favorite film?
Oh, awesome. I grew up in movie theaters.
What you want to be favorite that you keep going back to?
Honestly, Martin, that's so impossible. That changes like with my taste buds and like with my love of music. I always say A Love Supreme is the one album I couldn't. So maybe if that was what's the one film I couldn't live without?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that that's necessarily saying it's my favorite, but it's the one that always gives me incredible emotion. It would probably be either the film version of West Side Story or the film version of Porgy and Bess.
Yeah.
Those two films, they have moments that bring me to tears, and I can't. And every time I see them, I say, "I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry."
Yeah, I do. I think the film of West Side Story. I've seen it on the stage, both on Broadway and in the West End in London. And the film is just right from the opening overture. Where the
overture is brilliant.
Slow reveal of Manhattan through different colors. Oh my God! Everything about that film is just it's unsurpassable for me. So yeah, I'd agree with you on that. Your favorite book?
Now that's a tricky one because,
Or one of
so once again, let's say a book that I feel I couldn't live without.
Yeah.
Because favorite, God, you're talking to me in my library now. If I turn around, you would see books as far as the eye could see. So the book I couldn't live without, I'd probably go back to the beginning. The very first book I ever read was Treasure Island by Stevenson. But believe it or not, the second book I read, even though I was a mere babe in arms, was Moby Dick by Melville.
Wow.
And try and read Moby Dick now as an adult. You will find it quite challenging.
I think,
even though I didn't have, at the time when I was a child, I didn't have command and knowledge of, I didn't have a vocabulary to understand the sophistication and the polysyllabic words that were in Moby Dick. And I didn't understand subtext as much as I do now. But at the time, I was captivated. You could see I was the sort of seafaring kind of guy.
You're a musical seafarer now. You're on the high ocean of music. Yeah. So, do you like visual art? I mean, do you like? Yeah. So, who's your favorite visual artist or conceptual artist?
Oof, once again, man.
Or the one who can't live without, we'll say.
That's hard because I own a couple of pieces that I find.
Well, talk them up because the value will go up, right?
Wow. So it's interesting. Just day before yesterday, a person asked me to sell her a painting, which I could never do because Mick Jagger gave it to me. And I can sell stuff that I bought, but stuff that people give me, it's a weird thing. So a favorite painting, I would have to say favorite painting. It's just impossible. God, I mean, when I was a kid, I lived in movie theaters and museums, and just as I said to you, how malleable my brain and my philosophies were. One moment I could be into, German expressionism, and the next minute I could be into Picasso, and the next minute I'd be into, pre-Raphaelite or Orientalism. I love Orientalism. If you come to my apartment, it's a whole neoclassical vibe because my name is Nile, and it's like my bedroom is like the antechamber in the Great Pyramid. It's all.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's crazy. Hieroglyphics all around, and my shower. It's whatever. I went pretty nuts in my apartment, and so a lot of the paintings that I have, I love. They're not like, may not be, de Koonings or whatever, but it's great stuff. I love Orientalist painters, and I love. It's just impossible. I mean, I have paintings that are done by my ex-girlfriend, because she was an amazing forger. So I'm going to go off topic for a little bit.
Okay.
Because you'll
go.
So a lot of people that I know who are really wealthy, for some reason, want to appear more wealthy. So a person, and I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead, but a guy like Warner Leroy, who had an amazing art collection. You would go to the Russian tea room, or you go to his apartment, or you go to Tavern on the Green, and you'd see just the most amazing paintings. But I would say a third of those were fakes done by my ex-girlfriend.
Oh.
Like if he had 4 Picassos, he wanted to have 6 Picassos.
Ah.
So that would be real. And the other 3, my girlfriend did, and she could copy any style.
Wow.
So a lot of the paintings that I have in my heart and in my life are her original paintings because she's that great. I mean, she can forge anything. You would not know the difference.
Wow.
And when you have people who are very wealthy, they're usually visited by people who are very smart when it comes to art. And they'll come to his house and they would see, and they just go, Jesus, I can't believe he got that. How did he get that? He had to get that from the prince of so-and-so because that's in his personal, that sort of thing.
Reputation.
Gordon Leroy was very smart in the ones that he would get her to copy.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, that was a long answer to the artist question. I didn't get an answer though. Tell me who your favorite artist is. Come on.
I can't give you one.
You can't.
Because I don't. I really, my tastes are all over the map. I mean, it's
yeah. Eclectic. Let's settle on eclectic. That's the get out clause on this. I'm the same. Yeah. I love eclecticism. So, okay, a moment that changed your life, that changed the direction of your life.
A big one. When I had been frustrated trying to play the Beatles song "A Day in the Life," and that's because I was not a guitarist; I was a clarinetist. And but my mother had bought me a guitar for my birthday, and I was trying to play it. And because of being with symphony orchestras, I tuned my guitar more like a violin or a cello than a guitar. And I was doing the fingerings exactly right, but it never sounded right. And in my brain, I said, because I don't have the right, whatever embouchure would be called on the guitar. Like I didn't know the word.
You didn't know the tablature or whatever. Yeah.
Right. I didn't have the position. I just kept thinking I'm not pressing down hard enough. My strings aren't light.
The articulation. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But I was diligent. Boy, I played it over and over and over and over and over again. And I knew one day it would come, just like when I was playing the clarinet, and it would go, then all of a sudden it would go, yeah. Oh, like, yeah. So my mom's boyfriend came in and he heard me and he said, Jesus, what do you have that guitar tuned like? And he retuned it, guitar tuning. And I went, and I went, whoa. Word. And it was like, right. And I'm looking at the book, how those guitar books have like the position.
Yeah.
Positions. So I just followed the positioning and it was perfect. And because I had been trying so hard, I had gotten strong and I didn't realize it was almost like a kung fu movie. Like I was doing this thing.
Oh, grasshopper. Yeah.
Right. Now, when I played the F chord, finally in A Day in the Life, and it was a bar chord, it was like nothing to it. I was like, so I went, I read the news today, oh boy. Pretty slow. A hell of a lot slower than I'm doing it now, but I was just being methodic when I went, Crane, I've read the news today, oh Crane, whoa. About a lucky man who made the grade. And I got cocky. I went, danga, danga, dang, dang. I was like, oh my God. I had it, and I played that F chord. And it just was like solid as a rock.
Oh,
I said, holy cow, I will never play another instrument again other than guitar.
That's a great story. That's a fantastic. I've never heard that story before. Who's your favorite classical musician? Classical composer, sorry.
That's horrible. Horrible to say that. Oh, man, come on.
I'll just pick one. Pick one.
Prokofiev.
Yeah, love Prokofiev. We agree on that. That's amazing. Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, cool, man. Okay, last 2 questions. What's your favorite of your own productions?
It's just,
Or your own songs, you know, the one song that means more to you than anything. No? No?
It really doesn't. It doesn't exist. I mean, honestly, if you and I could talk about every single composition and you gave it to me song by song, we'd be here for 20 hours.
I know.
And I would tell you how much I loved doing this. And I mean, even something like Original Sin, what the guys wrote originally and what I changed it to and how open they were. And boom, next thing you know, guys who were pretty much unknown, bang.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not only moments like that, but it's also moments like Let's Dance, changing Let's Dance from a folk song to a funk song. It's writing Everybody Dance, and Bernard's bass part was so unbelievable that everything I did at that point became relegated to just playing
Right.
da, 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 because I couldn't get in his way. Da, da, da. But meanwhile, what I wrote was dun, dun,
It would have been too much, wouldn't it? Yeah.
it was like it would have been like at war.
Yeah.
But at one point in the long version, you get to hear me do that part. But that was the original song. I was clap your hand. And
I want to hear that version. I want to hear that version.
But you can just go to play the long version of Chic, and it's when we break down.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
It's clavinet. Well, that clavinet is actually being keyed from my guitar. This was the old days we had a Keypex, and so the player who was a great jazz player but was not a great funk player, I just had him finger the chords, and that rhythm is my rhythm.
Oh right, I get it.
We did that on quite a few records, by the way.
Oh, secret techniques. I get it. Okay, final question. What's your favorite synthesizer?
Ooh, I would have to say, well, only because I was the guy playing it, was my synclavier. And I miss it so much because that one synthesizer changed my life and changed other people's lives. So yeah, you know, I loved every synthesizer that we work with, we loved right from the very beginning. Our Big Apple band, Rob Sabino, our keyboard player, had a Micro Moog, and then we graduated from Micro Moog to Mini Moog, and then the Prophet Fives.
Yeah.
But when I left Chic and I started doing my own programming, I got a synclavier, and it was because of oh God, what's his name? Great, amazing producer. Jesus. I even gigged with him, and he was great. He was a great bass player. You have to know him. Come on, the great producer who did "Owner of a Lonely Heart."
Oh, no, can't remember.
And a lot of other great records.
Yeah. We'll come back to me. Don't worry, I'm going to get killed for this.
No, we don't know him. Trevor Horn.
Trevor Horn.
Yeah,
Trevor Horn.
Trevor Horn had a synclavier, and he did Grace Jones' record called "Slave to the Rhythm."
Oh, the best record.
Oh, I was like the cyclopanning, and it was just like, are you kidding me? So
I'm going to interview Trevor Horn, and when I interview him, I'm going to tell him he made me want to not be a producer anymore, because I thought I'm never going to make a record that sounds as good as that. I honestly want to give up.
It was amazing. I remember I walked into Ahmet Ertegun's office, and he said, "Nile, I want you to take a listen to this." And he played "Owner of a Lonely Heart." And I was like going, are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding? I could not believe that. And I was like, who is that? And he said, "That's Yes." I was like, what? No way. That's how important a producer can be to an artist, because I loved Yes. But man, when I heard "Owner of a Lonely Heart,"
Yeah.
could not believe that.
That's right.
I
That's
just
right.
completely couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Well,
It's the first time
I'll say we
we
need to keep the flag flying for real producers, because everybody's a
yeah.
producer now can switch a computer on. That's how they term themselves. But I think,
But good work though. I mean, look, I know in a strange way, my life has become a lot more exciting because I've always wanted, well, you even said it yourself. I've never, ever since I became, professional, Chic, I've never had a band that didn't have women in my band. As a matter of fact, the first incarnation of Chic, we had 2 women on horns, 4 violins, 4 strings. So there was 6 there. We had our 2 girls and Luther Vandross and his background singers. So the first incarnation of Chic had way more girls in the band than guys. And that's always been an important thing to me. And not because I was trying to be politically correct or anything, but honestly, because somebody told me something. And when people tell you these kind of musical parables, we're musicians, we're sort of superstitious and we take it as the truth. So somebody said to me early in my career, most music is bought by girls between the age of blah, blah, blah and blah, blah, blah. And I kept thinking, well, why the hell don't I have that person writing songs with me? Because they have like a direct mental connection to the people we're trying to sell to. So at least I knew that if I didn't have them as my partner, because the difference was in those days, they were actually intimidated by the gear a bit. Whereas the thing I love about today's world, all the women I work with, they're not intimidated by the gear at all. They all have computers. They like you said, everybody's a producer. So my job is actually easier because they understand more. They do so much more of the work now on their own than I could have ever imagined. So I'm actually, in a strange way, happier because when I talk to an artist, and even I've always talked to artists with respect and said, hey, you know your audience better than I know your audience. So I'm always going to go with you, even though if I might argue, but I always say at the end of the day, hey, when this record comes out, your name is going to be big. I remember famously saying this to Madonna. I was arguing over first single. I said, first single should be Material Girl. She said, no, first single should be Like a Virgin. And we argued and argued and argued. And finally I said, Madonna, this is not really much of an argument because at the end of the day, when the record comes out, it's going to say, Madonna.
Yeah. I think on that note, on our laugh, I think we should end the interview. What an absolute pleasure, Nile. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And let's meet up soon. And, when all this COVID nonsense is over, and I'll come and shake your hand and we'll give each other a big hug.
Big hug.
And do all that. All right, man. I love you so much. All right.
Take care.
See you later. Bye.